Bush, Obama, Trump, and now Biden, whenever there is an incumbent president, it's the opposite party, the other party, that tends to win the House. Having said that, though, the extent of today's victory, CNN is projecting that out of the 23 competitive races, 19 of them the Republicans are leading in right now. They will get to 218, perhaps even way more than the 222 that the Democrats had when they won the House in 2018. What do you attribute this to? What does it boil down to?
Well, I think it's what we've known from the beginning, and that's that the party in power, the party in the White House, and particularly when that same party controls both the House and the Senate, they get the blame for what voters are feeling when they go to the polls. So even with the projections that we're looking at now, this does not begin to compare with some of the, I'll use former President Obama's term, shellacking, as he said. But it does show that the country is, displeased with the direction of our country, but also a lot of Americans believe that things work better when there's divided government. Gridlock means things don't change as quickly as they do with one party in power. So that may be behind a lot of the votes we've seen tonight.
I want to go across to Ambassador Vishnu Prakash as well. Of course, domestic elections, particularly in the United States, being the world's biggest economy, the most powerful nation on the planet, will have serious foreign policy implications as well. The most important and pressing one is what happens to this almost blank check that's been given to Ukraine. Will the Republicans, if they control the House and they have control over the oversight committees and the foreign affairs committees and so on, will they put a spanner in the works of that almost endless pipeline of weapon supply that's been going to Ukraine for the last 8 months?
Zaka, good morning. That is something that is widely expected because a sizable section of the Republicans in the Senate and Republicans in the House are opposed to giving a blank check to Ukraine. More than $60 billion is seen to have been committed and is in the pipeline to Ukraine. And, slowly kind of a war fatigue is setting in. So the commitment of, or the ability of President Biden to keep on sending weapons, keep on committing finances, financial support, defense support, military support, humanitarian support will certainly be impacted or is likely to be impacted. If they lose both the houses, but even if he loses the House of Representatives, which controls the financial strings, there will be a difficulty in terms of committing more and more finance.
Okay, Ray Locker is a senior American journalist. He's also joining us. What do you make of the map of America as it stands right now? It seems like the Republicans will control the House of Representatives, and it basically boils down to between Pennsylvania and Georgia as to whether they will control the Senate. What do you attribute to this almost red wave that we're seeing across the country tonight?
I don't think it's a red wave. I mean, obviously the Republicans have gained control of the House, or they seem poised to. But if it was a red wave, they would have taken the Senate, and then they may not do that. It probably won't do that. So they've done well. They're going to be in position to influence a lot of policy. I don't believe they're going to stop the flow of weapons to Ukraine because I think there's a bipartisan majority to do that. So this is a very mixed bag election influenced by people's feelings about inflation. They're not happy. Influenced by their feelings about abortion. They're not happy about that. They take it out on the party in the White House, which they seem to be doing, but not in a way that some people would have expected, like what we saw in 2010 or 2018 for that matter.
No, but Mr. Locker, as far as the Senate races are concerned right now, in Pennsylvania, John Fetterman has a very thin lead. Wisconsin, there, Ron Johnson seems to be having a fairly substantial lead. So is the case as far as Georgia is concerned. Herschel Walker, you heard him some time ago, almost giving a victory speech, if you will. If the Republicans take Wisconsin, Georgia, and Pennsylvania as a toss-up, then we're at 50-50. We're at a dead heat. And Pennsylvania is a very, very thin lead for Fetterman right now.
Right, but what the thing with Pennsylvania is Fetterman is leading now with early votes that got counted at the beginning and in-person votes. A lot of the mail votes get counted later. We saw that in 2020, where Trump was doing well at the beginning and ended up losing the state as the votes came in over the next couple of days. That's going to happen again. And that's by design by the Republican legislature of Pennsylvania. They forbid the counting of mail ballots at the beginning. So you have kind of a red mirage right now where Oz is doing, I think, better than he will do later when the votes come in. And so Fetterman's going to win that race.
Okay.
Right now, Walker is ahead by 1,000 votes in Georgia, latest count I saw. And some of the biggest counties in metropolitan Atlanta, all which Warnock has won by large majorities, by at least 30 percentage points, still have hundreds of thousands of votes out. And that's going to put him in the lead probably as we go into tomorrow and Thursday. And that's what happened in 2020 in that race, in the runoff race. So we're looking at that again. Warnock may not get to 50 points. And if that happens, we're going to look at a runoff in another month. And anything could happen in that race. So I think the Democrats would feel good about where they stand in Georgia and Pennsylvania. Not so much in Wisconsin. I think Ron Johnson's going to win that seat. And I think Nevada is a big sleeper race.
Okay, we'll see how Nevada plays out. But let me also go across to my colleague Reena Bhardwaj, who's joining us from Washington, D.C. What's the national picture? Clearly, the Republicans seem poised, Reena, to take the House of Representatives. That was expected. That's how it's been over the last 30, 40 years. The incumbent president's party tends to lose the House in the midterms. But if the Democrats can hold on to the Senate, would that be considered a victory?
Absolutely. Zaka, you've really painted the picture, right? If we talk about, the House, very high chances that the Democrats will not make it. But the Senate, yes, it is still, we cannot just take it away from the Democrats that, the Senate is also out. So the picture here for the Senate and the race to the Senate is still, the competition is still on, the race is still on. If we talk about the big picture that comes out from the state of Florida is, the Republican victory there. It's clearly, this is one state which was traditionally blue for a very long time. And suddenly there's this whole turnaround. You see this red wave that hit Florida. And why did it hit Florida? Is because, if it's DeSantis or Rubio, they both talked about inflation. They talked about the economy. They talked about, jobs. These are the concerns that are pinching everyone across the country. But of course, taking it up in Florida is another reason why the Republicans have made it so big. And now, if we talk about Georgia, we talk about Nevada. These are states where Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. These are states where the race is neck and neck. What's going to happen is not going to come out in a day. It may take a few days, probably, a week maybe. So the race out there is very, very tight as of now.
Okay. So what may this mean in terms of foreign policy implications? Of course, everyone's worried and fingers crossed on what happens to the war in Ukraine. But let me go back to Fred Weyer. I think Donald Trump had said this openly in one of his stump speeches, one of his campaign-ending speeches, that there will be a rethink of the monies that are being given to Ukraine. Also, we are expecting some kind of an investigation that the Republicans will launch into Hunter Biden, into the entire war effort and the monies that have been given to Ukraine. So all of that could potentially slow down the pace of military and non-military aid being given to Ukraine, so much so that Zelensky a couple of days back said that he expects bipartisan support for the Ukraine war effort.
I think that Ukraine support will slow down in any case. The amounts that have been given are like they exceed the GDP of Ukraine in the past 9 months or so, and I think that the pot is running dry in any case, and there will be rethinks in the United States. You saw just the other day Joe Biden suggesting that negotiations should be back on the table. There, a lot depends on what will happen on the battlefield, but in the short run, the fixes in the United States is pretty, and all of its allies are pretty committed to supporting Ukraine, and that's an establishment commitment. Yes, voter sentiment seems to be changing. Polls do show that Americans are war weary,
correct,
and not just because of Ukraine, but because of the past 20 years. There is a wing of the Republican Party that is sort of militantly anti-interventionist. Their voices will probably grow, but I don't think, and I don't know any Russian experts, at least not that handful who actually understand the United States, who expect any change.
Okay, it's interesting. I mean, Americans have been war weary, and not necessarily just because of the Ukraine war. It stems all the way from Iraq and even Afghanistan before that. But I want to go back to Calvin Dark. Back in the summer, when the Supreme Court, the United States Supreme Court, overturned Roe v. Wade, denying abortion rights to women, the Democrats thought that that's a leg up for them. They'll put Roe v. Wade back on the ballot. This will become a huge sort of rallying point, if you will, particularly for suburban women who had become a huge vote bank for the Democratic Party, certainly in 2020 when Joe Biden won. Why didn't that come to pass?
Well, I think it's too early to say whether that was not a successful message, because let's keep in mind, once we're able to digest the final results and we see that, there was a huge increase of women who registered to vote, we will then be able to see with the exit polls if that mattered. Because here's the thing, a lot of people have made kind of a big deal that Democrats didn't stress inflation, the economy, these things that were the priorities for most American voters. But here's the thing, American voters, like American people, can do more than one thing at a time. And I think that a lot of people that came out to vote whose priority might have been the economy are also thinking about the issue of abortion. The other thing is this is a central right that women have had for almost 50 years that was taken away from this by the Supreme Court. I don't care what happens tonight or what happens in 2024. People aren't going to stop that fight. What's going to happen now is to see how that fight turns into either pressuring Congress or gearing up in 2 years for the presidential election.
Okay, let me ask Ambassador Vishnu Prakash. Ukraine, of course, is one big foreign policy matter, but the other big relationship on which a lot of the world depends on is the U.S. China relationship. Given how frosty it's been over the last couple of years, we've not had a state visit either from Xi Jinping to the United States or from Joe Biden to Beijing. Do you expect any major change now that the Democrats are all set to lose control of one chamber of Congress? Will there be even more pressure on the incumbent Democrat to appear far more hawkish in China than he's already been?
I would think so, because Democrats their hands were tied by President Trump, given the stance that President Trump had taken. Mm-hmm. And if there was any desire on the part of the Democrats to find some kind of a modus vivendi with China or make some concessions, that was taken away. Now, the two leaders, President Biden and President Xi, are likely to meet in Bali at the G20 summit.
Correct.
But it is unlikely that either side will make any concessions. So I think that if the House is lost and the Republicans are calling the shots, or again the wind in the Republican sails, it will be difficult for Biden to make any concession or seem to be making any concession or accommodation with China.
How is the rest of the Ray Locker? Next week we have the G20. President Biden is going to be there. Xi Jinping is going to be there. There's this huge speculation on whether there will be a Biden-Putin meeting. How will the rest of the world deal with a president who they know has lost control of one chamber of Congress, could likely lose the second one as well? And that means he can pretty much do nothing about his big-ticket agendas for the next couple of years.
Well, first of all, he passed a huge raft of bills in his first 2 years as president. A lot of big ticket. He doesn't need any more of those. I mean, look at what happened to Obama in 2010 after he lost both chambers of Congress, or he lost the House and had his majority reduced in the Senate. Mm-hmm. I mean, he carried on. He's still the chief executive of the United States of America. The same thing happened with Trump after 2018. The president is the president. Most foreign leaders don't worry about, what's Kevin McCarthy think? I mean, most members of Congress don't worry about what Kevin McCarthy thinks. So the relationship continues. If you're the president of the United States, you carry on as you normally would, unless you're in dire jeopardy of losing your job, being impeached. And even then, you look at Richard Nixon in 1974, on his way to being impeached before he resigned, had some of the world's greatest foreign policy accomplishments by working on the end of the Arab-Israeli War of 1973 that stretched into 1974. So presidents still get things done regardless of who controls Congress.
All right, let's, I request, all right, we'll go to our CNN coverage as well in just a moment, but I want to once again bring it back, steer the conversation back to what may this mean, what may this midterm loss mean for President Biden. Of course, we know that Donald Trump is going to make a big announcement on the 15th. Let me ask Calvin Dock, do you expect Trump to announce that he's running for president again in 2024 on the 15th? And what may that mean for the Republican field itself? What may that mean for a Ron DeSantis? What may that mean for a Marco Rubio? Do you expect these people to run if Trump were to make that announcement on the 15th?
Well, the first thing is it's going to be very difficult for the American people because we now will have 2 years of President Trump running for president. So that's something we're going to have to deal with. And one thing that it does clear up is that while there are alternatives in the Republican Party like Ron DeSantis, Marco Rubio, Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, Pompeo, once he makes that decision, they will be silenced. One thing we know for sure is there will not be an appetite in the Republican Party to have a primary where they decide who they want to represent them. That's not how Trump works. So one thing is, if he does announce next week, as we all assume that he will do, then that will be the Republican nominee, and we won't have to hear from anyone else. We'll just have to hear from Trump for the next 2 years.
I want to get a word from Reena Bhardwaj as well. If Trump is going to, I mean, he's made a victory speech about an hour or so ago. He's claiming that Republicans are completely running away with it in this midterm. On the 15th, when he's expected to make this big presidential bid to announce that he's going to run for the White House yet again, what may that mean for the Democrats? Would that energize the Democrats? Because Trump is a polarizing figure. Would that energize Joe Biden, for example? Because he's been saying, and he said this in the 2020 campaign trail as well, that if there's any person in the Democratic Party who can beat Trump, it is him.
Well, that could be one factor, Zaka. I mean, when you talk to people at polling centers, at voting centers, this is what they say. They are worried about the democracy, and that's one thing that the Democrats have been repeatedly talking about. You know, the state of affairs of the democracy, like a country like America, and they're talking about democracy on a midterm election is something that worries an average American. I spoke to this lady today in the morning, and she said that the attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. I mean, this is not how they think of America. This is not how the world should think about America. So that's one thing that if former President Donald Trump decides to run, then of course the Democrats do have an edge. They do have that extra edge. Talking about his rhetoric and how he talked about the 2020 elections. You know, how he denied every bit of it. If you see Trump's rally, every time he talked about, how he won 2 elections, which is not true. He just won one, and the other one was clearly he lost the election. But still, he keeps talking about that, and that's a rhetoric that could go against him, because within the GOP also there is that thing. There are the conservatives like DeSantis who support DeSantis, who talk about this rhetoric cannot take Trump really very far, or GOP very far. So that could be that could give the Democrats some edge when it comes to Trump running for 2024. All
right, Reena, I want to thank you very much for joining us and for your coverage through the day here on CNN News 18. Let me go across now to CNN's Isabel Rosales, who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Isabel, thanks very much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. Generally, in the U.S. midterms, it's been that the party that controls the White House, it typically loses either one or both chambers of Congress. Right now, it seems like the Republicans will take control of the House. The Senate is still a toss-up. What is the situation looking like right now on election night in America 2022?
Hey, yeah, good evening to you from Washington. So looking at the House right now, Republicans have picked up 5 seats, and that is a crucial number because if they maintain that net gain, that means that they've won the House, the majority of the House. Over in the Senate, things are a little bit dicier there. The race for Senate control, that is locked in a dead heat. So Republicans right now projected to hold 46 seats, Democrats projected to hold 46 seats. So a dead tie right there. We're still waiting on many more results, but either party needs to have 50 seats in order to win a majority. So the whole thing with election night, it's a complex system. You would think that after tonight everything's resolved, you get all the results, but that is not the case. It is very nuanced and it depends on the state, it depends on the counties, what the rules are, especially when it comes to the counting of mail-in votes, of absentee votes, when those get counted. In states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, crucial battleground states, they actually have laws that ban early counting of mail-in ballots. So why this matters. In Pennsylvania, the day of election day votes, they get counted first. That tends to be more Republican leaning, right? And then those mail-in votes get counted. That tends to be more Democratic leaning. So we're looking out to see if there's going to be a so-called red mirage, an illusion where it appears that Republicans are at first gaining ground, and then those Democratic leaning votes tend to be counted afterwards. Arizona, the opposite is true. And then there's Georgia, another dead heat Senate race happening right there. Georgia has a particular rule where they have to, in the race, win 50% of the votes plus one vote in order to avoid a runoff.
Yeah.
Right now, that's not happening between the two candidates, so it's very possible that runoff goes till December the 6th.
We heard some time back from former President Donald Trump. He's claiming victory. He's projecting that the Republicans will not just win the House, but win it by a big majority. We know that he's going to have a big announcement on the 15th next week. What are we expecting? Is he sort of setting the stage for a possible run in 2024?
Right. And Zaka, if Republicans have a good night, of course, Donald Trump is going to take ownership of that, take credit of that. This is important to him because he could freeze the field. He's looking over his shoulder at other Republican candidates who could possibly be the nominee, like Republican Governor Ron DeSantis over in Florida, and also his former Vice President, Mike Pence. So if he has a good night with his Trump endorsees, he can dominate the field. The bottom line here is that for Trump, these endorsements, they matter to him. It tests him as a kingmaker. And for him to have importance, influence within the Republican Party, his endorsement must remain powerful. Election day today is packed full of Trump endorsees, Trump endorsed candidates. But on the flip side, look at Georgia. The governor, Brian Kemp there, who just won his race. He's projected to win. He won the primary against a Trump-endorsed candidate, David Perdue. So that right there exposes the limits of Trump's power and influence over the GOP. And as far as 2024, that's what you were asking about, Zaka, he has not formally announced a presidential run, but he has heavily teased it. He says, quote, "I will very, very, very probably do it again," teasing November the 15th for a big announcement.
And what may tonight mean for Joe Biden? Of course, as the Democrats lose control of the House, what may that mean for Joe Biden's legislative agenda? He did push through quite a few bills in his first 2 years in office, but if the Republicans were to take the House, what may that mean for healthcare, environment, immigration? All of these are big on Biden's legislative agenda. Do they get stalled?
Right. And this is what Biden said at a rally. He said, quote, "If we lose the House and the Senate, it's going to be a horrible 2 years," end quote. So privately, behind closed doors, according to our sources, they do not see a viable path forward for them to maintain a majority of the House. That is the reality that is setting in, and they're planning for the next steps there. But GOP control of one or both chambers would essentially doom Democratic priorities. Essentially, the era of big progressive bills that will likely end. So issues like climate change, abortion access, voting rights, those are entirely in question. And the Republicans, they have vowed to roll back certain legislative moves by the president, such as higher taxes on corporations and even the stream of money going into Ukraine. We recently had an interview, an exclusive interview with Kevin McCarthy, who's the House Minority Leader, could now be House Speaker coming up. And he said, "We will not write blank checks to Ukraine."
Yep.
Zaka.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, Isabel Rosales. Thanks very much for joining us at this late hour from Washington, D.C. Right now, as things stand, the Democrats will most certainly lose the House of Representatives. The Senate is still a toss-up. If they do manage to hold on to the Senate, then it could still be a decent night for the Democrats. And of course, all focus is going to be on the 15th, if and when Trump announces his run for 2024. And what may that mean, not just for the Republican field, but what may that mean for the Democrats? Will it energize the Democrats to once again rally around Biden to defeat Trump, anyone but Trump, in the White House? What we'll do now is to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll go back to our guests and talk about the various foreign policy implications of tonight. Remember, the G20 is right around the corner. A weakened Biden. What may that mean in foreign policy terms? Right on the other side of this quick break.
Main foreign policy priorities of President Joe Biden's administration. The White House's current approach to Beijing's growing economic might and assertiveness is expected to remain relatively stable no matter what party takes over Congress. Republicans or Democrats, both are unlikely to shift the thrust of the Biden administration's China policy. In fact, expected victories by the Republican Party will almost certainly force the American leader to take an even harder line on Beijing. Next is Russia's war in Ukraine. Putin's invasion of Ukraine currently is in its 9th month. The U.S. has led international efforts to bolster Ukrainian fight back against Kremlin's aggression and has provided Ukraine with crucial military, economic, and diplomatic support. That support has persisted despite deep partisan division in Washington, D.C., and rifts that have been on full display in election campaigns for Congress. The likelihood that Republicans will take control of the House has triggered concerns about the long-term support for the war effort, as a growing number of Republican lawmakers have voiced misgivings about an open-ended financial commitment to Ukraine. The politics surrounding aid to Ukraine is not an easy subject and is also being heard in political rallies. Well, on Thursday, during a visit to Pennsylvania, President Joe Biden said that the Republicans will have the power to back aid to Ukraine if they win back control of Congress. The war in Ukraine has had a direct impact on the inflation in U.S. caused by higher energy prices, and what makes it even worse are the recent actions of one of America's most important allies in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. The relationship between the Saudis and the Biden administration started out frosty, as President Biden criticized Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for human rights abuses when he first came into office. When U.S. energy prices started to rise with the Ukraine war, leading to the famous fist bump the two shared back.
Welcome back. It is election night in America. It is the result day as far as the midterms are concerned. And the big picture is this, that the Republican Party, the grand old party in the United States, is expected to take control of the House of Representatives. They will sail past the 218 halfway mark that's required to take control of the House. The Senate is still a toss-up. It's going to boil down to two states, Pennsylvania and Georgia. In Pennsylvania, John Fetterman of the Democratic Party is leading, a wafer-thin majority there right now for Fetterman. And in Georgia, it's a dead heat between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. Walker, again, with a very, very thin lead there in Georgia. So it's going to boil down to these two swing states, as it were, as to who controls the United States Senate. As far as the governorship races are concerned, 36 states up for gubernatorial races this evening, in which the Republicans are leading in 24, the Democrats only in 14. In conversation with our guests, and we'll now expand this to the foreign policy domain, Fred Wire is a political analyst joining us from Russia. Jagdish Sivani is president of the Indian American Public Affairs Committee. Vishnu Prakash, former Indian ambassador, and Ray Locker will also be joining us. Fred Wire, we talked about Ukraine quite a bit in the previous segment. Let's now expand this to what this may mean for U.S.'s relationships with other major powers. We know, given Biden and Mohammed bin Salman's rather cold vibes that happened in the state visit that happened a few months ago, do you expect any major change as far as America's relations with the Middle East? And now that Netanyahu is also back in Israel, do you expect things to get cold between America's two major partners and allies in the Middle East, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Israel?
I think that there is a process, a much bigger process going on than the Ukraine war, but that has accelerated a lot of the divisions, a lot of the tectonic changes that were taking place. I think we've seen very clearly the limits of American power, as they try to create a global coalition against Russia, and that has worked with all their traditional friends and allies. Europe and Australia and Japan and so on, but not so much with other countries, certainly not with China. Even India has maintained neutrality, and Israel, indeed. A lot of the world has stayed on the sidelines, and Russia has perceived itself to benefit from that. But what we're looking at is a much more divided world, a fragmented world, no matter what happens in various electoral contests. I think this is the big picture. And this is for Russia, which is what I study, they have been shifting all their priorities for several years, but now at a much more frenetic rate toward Asia, away from the West. I don't think the Russians expect anything from the West anymore, and they are happy to cut off their relationships with, especially the United States.
I'll come to, if Trump were to decide to run on the 15th, and given, the history between Trump and Putin in his previous term, in Trump's term as president, what may that mean for the nature of this war? But I'll get to that in 1 second. I want to go to Vishnu Prakash as well about the U.S.-India relationship. Of course, we are a major defense partner of the United States. The relationship has transformed over the last 30 years, and there is a bipartisan support for India. Yet there is some sort of niggling issues. The fact that Joe Biden has still not, he has appointed an ambassador, but the ambassador has still not taken office 2 years after his appointment. That is a bit of a niggle. Of course, the US and other European partners have an issue with India still buying oil, and lots of it from Russia. Do you see these niggles being ironed out over the next 2 years, or will India not be as much of a priority as it was in the first couple of years?
As you have very rightly observed, fortunately, there is cross-party consensus on relations with India, and the trajectory of India-US relations has been only looking upward. When you have a relationship as large, as deep, and as broad as you have between India and the US, there are bound to be niggles. Even during the Trump presidency, there was the famous Harley-Davidson. There was the trade niggles. Now it is on some other issues. So yes, there will be niggles, and the sides will sort it out. But I am very convinced that given the quality of India-US bilateral relations and overall geopolitical situation, the India-US relations are bound to expand in the coming years, and both sides have today the ability to sit down and sort out the differences, if any, that exist between them.
All right. Calvin Dark, I go back to that question about if Trump were to decide to run on the 15th, what may this mean for the rest of the Republican field? And more importantly, what signal would that send to the rest of the world? Because it'll be on the exact same day that Joe Biden will be at the G20, all of this speculation about whether he'll have a meeting with Xi Jinping, whether he'll have a meeting with Putin. And given Putin and Trump's own relationship, if you will, from his first term as president, do you expect a more emboldened Vladimir Putin and a weakened Biden?
Yes. So for the first part, when it comes to who will be Trump's challengers in the Republican Party, there won't be any. There's no one that remotely is as popular. But when it comes to foreign affairs, here's something that we have to keep in mind. President Trump got out tonight and was making that kind of weird victory speech, look what I endorsed, not because he didn't have anything to do, but because he is planning on being the puppet master behind the Republicans way before 2024. We've already seen some of his staunchest supporters in Congress, like Marjorie Taylor Greene, talking about what they will do when they get in Congress. And we also have to remember, Donald Trump was the one for most of his term really downplayed NATO, even threatened to not support it at the level that the United States had. So even though he won't be in office, he will be pulling the strings behind Republicans on these issues. And I think that's really going to affect the U.S.'s reputation abroad, because Donald Trump's going to be saying what he's going to be like a shadow president, or at least trying to be.
Yeah.
And for intervention, cooperation, especially with NATO and European partners, that's not something that Trump has had any enthusiasm for.
All right. So as Isabel was saying a moment ago, Kevin McCarthy, who could likely be the House Speaker, the next House Speaker, he said in as many words, they're going to stop the blank check to Ukraine. So it's going to have very, very serious fallout and consequences for the ongoing war there. I want to thank all our guests. Thank you very much to Calvin Dark, Fred Wire, and Ambassador Prakash for joining us. Let me now take you back again to the magic wall and give you the situation as it exists right now in the United States. It's election night in America. Let's look at the House races first. This is what the projection is. Remember, the incumbent party, the party that controls the White House, almost inevitably loses the House in a midterm election. It happened with Trump, it happened with Obama, it happened with even Clinton going back 30, 40 years ago. So right now, this is where the race stands. 186 to the Republicans, 161 to the Democrats. What they need is 218. Remember, there are only 22 competitive races, of which the Republicans have already won 19. So which means if they flip 3 more seats, then they will end up with 218, which is the halfway mark. But given the kind of red wave, as it were, you're seeing across the country, especially in Middle America, that is expected, whether it is in Montana, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, this entire Bible Belt, as it's called here, in the heartland of the United States, or for that matter, in the industrial Midwest, in Michigan, Indiana, Ohio. These used to be toss-up states. There again, it seems to be a Republican red wave. Florida, another state which until a few years ago, 5, 10, 20 years ago, used to be a blue state, is now firmly a red state. Trump is from there. Ron DeSantis is from there. Marco Rubio, who won tonight, is from there. So Florida seems to be firmly in red territory over the last few years or so. For the Democrats, a little bit of blue shade in the east, as you expect from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Vermont, etc. And of course, here in the west, California, Washington State, Oregon, that again going to the Democrats. But they have very little to cheer the Democrats tonight. 161 to 186 is where it is right now. But the Republicans will carry the House and carry it handsomely. Let's talk about the Senate. It's a bit of a toss-up in the Senate. Remember, 100 seats in the Senate, 35 are up for grabs right now, 35 voting in this midterm, of which it's a dead heat right now. 46 to Republicans, 46 to Democrats. It boils down to just 3 or 4 Senate races. Wisconsin, Ron Johnson there leading right now. He might take that seat, so 46 could go up +1. Then you have the Pennsylvania seat, John Fetterman. Pennsylvania, traditionally working-class state. It's always been a blue state. Over the last couple of election cycles, there's been a bit of a fight between Clinton and Trump first, and then between Biden and Trump in the 2020 cycle. But if Fetterman carries through Pennsylvania, then you have 46 +1 here as well. Then it boils down to the state of Georgia. Who takes Georgia? It's a neck-and-neck battle between Herschel Walker of the Republican Party and Raphael Warnock, who won that runoff in 2020. If Warnock holds on to Georgia, then the Democrats are home and dry, simply because the Democrats need to win only 50. They have the casting vote of the Vice President Kamala Harris, whereas the Republicans need to win 51. So the Republicans need to carry through Wisconsin. They need to win Pennsylvania. Mehmet Oz needs to beat John Fetterman there, and they need to win Georgia as well. These 3 toss-up races in the Senate, if the Republicans win all 3, then they will go to 51 and they will control the Senate. So that's what it is looking like. It's going to be divided government in the United States for the next 2 years. That's a wrap. Thanks very much for tuning in.
There's a lot of people back there. That's incredible. That's a big group. They must be expecting something big tonight. Actually, they were hoping for big losses, but that's not happening. So the numbers have been amazing so far. Now, this is just up until this point. But as of this moment on endorsements, with the nominations, we had a total of 330 endorsements on nominations. This is only on nominations. This isn't for tonight. And of the 330, we won 200. We won 324. So if you think 224, and some of those were long shots, in all fairness. They were down in 5th place. We had a lot of people in 5th place that went to first, but it was 224 out of 330, and that's a pretty good number. And then tonight, because they kept saying, well, he's good on nominations, but is he good on the general election? So as of this moment, and we have some out there, we are 80 wins and 3 losses. Is that good? Wouldn't that be funny if we were better on the general election than the nominations themselves? So that's great. Now, in North Carolina, just out, Ted Budd is now leading, doing great. He's leading 51-47. In Missouri, very good guy, Eric Schmidt is now up 55-43, and he's against a Bush, but a different Bush. It's called an Anheuser-Busch. That's a different Bush. You tell me which is the real Bush. In Ohio, J.D. Vance is now leading 52-47. And we had an incredible rally last night in Ohio, and you saw that.
With me, Grihatul Siddiqui, and let's begin with the state of Karnataka this morning. At the top of the story is some breaking news that we are getting ahead of elections in the state. We are getting a swanky new airport as Bengaluru, the capital city of the state, has got. As of November 11th, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to be inaugurating the Terminal 2 of the Kempegowda International Airport at Bengaluru. This is built at a cost of around 5,000 crore rupees, and with this inauguration of Terminal 2, passenger handling capacity as well as counters for check-in and immigration will double up now, helping with the people and helping the people and the passengers immensely. It will be able to handle more than around 5 to 6 crore passengers annually from the 2.5 crores that's currently that it handles. So a brand new airport, Terminal 2, all set to be inaugurated by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the 11th of November. This is in fact good news for all the Bengalurians. My colleague Maria Shakil, who's brought us that input, is joining us on the broadcast. Maria, like I was mentioning, this is going to help the passengers, the commuters immensely.
Yes, absolutely. And we have seen that, massive infrastructure push that the Prime Minister has been undertaking. Most international airports all over the country have been upgraded. And on 11th November, that is day after tomorrow, the Prime Minister will be inaugurating Terminal 2 of the Kempegowda International Airport at Bengaluru, which has been built at a cost of around 5,000 crore. This will help them because, right now it handles, 2.5 crore passengers annually, and overall upgradation will help that it will be able to handle 5 to 6 crore passengers. What makes it unique is also that it has been an airport which has been built in with a sustainability, with 100% usage of renewable energy across the campus. The decongestion of airports across the country has become a big issue for the government, and hence the Prime Minister taken on that regard.
Also, Maria, talking about the kind of investment that has been put in when it comes to Terminal 2 of the airport, we are told 5,000 crores has been pumped in, and also 13,000 crores in all at the Kempegowda Airport, International Airport.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So the Prime Minister will be inaugurating it. The point here is that this is about decongesting airports overall. If you look at, in Delhi as well, the Delhi International Airport is being decongested with, the other terminals, which is, the Terminal 2 and 3, the multiple ports being added on those as well. So to ensure that as far as the passengers are concerned, they do not cut on their travel. Their travel time is also safe because of the long queues and other concerns. But I think the big takeaway will also be that the passengers will travel through green walls and hanging gardens, which is quintessential the city of garden. And that has been taken into account when we look at those images that have been shared with us through the Prime Minister's office. Those images certainly becomes interesting and it looks gorgeous at the same time. And the sheer scale of it will make it certainly one would say a piece to watch.
Absolutely, Maria. Thank you so much. Very, very pretty airport at that. Now it gets a facelift. Terminal 2 all set to be inaugurated at the Kempegowda airport by Prime Minister Narendra Modi on November 11th. That's the big news coming in from Karnataka. However, we are now shifting our focus to our neighboring country, Pakistan. And this is a CNN News 18 exclusive, as Pakistan's President Arif Alvi has met with the army chief there, General Bajwa. And these are the discussions that have happened. And this is about the current situation in Pakistan. These topics about political situation and the way forward has been discussed. Also, dialogues between government and the opposition is something which is a key point that has been discussed. Extension or the next appointment of the Chief of Army Staff was also on the agenda, and the long march by the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, Imran Khan's party, that also was a point of discussion, along with the Saudi prince and his visit in November that Pakistan is going to see. All of these were discussed when it comes to this key meeting between the Pakistan Premier Arif Alvi and also the Army Chief General Bajwa. To actually elaborate on this further, my colleague Abhishek is joining us on the broadcast. Abhishek, a key meeting that has taken place. What more can you tell us about these topics if you break down each one of them, especially the PTI march, and right after the assassination attempt that Imran Khan has seen becomes a very, very important point of discussion?
So we have to see this meeting in the context of army senior officials' recent statement where they have claimed that Pakistan's army does not like to interfere in the political dynamics of the country. The kind of discussions that you have also outlined, that these topics were discussed, talking about political situation or dialogues between government and opposition, Pakistan's PTI's long march, appointment of new army chief, or MBS Mohammed bin Salman's upcoming visit to Pakistan. In a normal democratic setup, you would not witness such kind of discussion happening between an army chief and the president of that country. So clearly, army is more than a power, a wielder in Pakistan than it has actually claimed in the recent time. And this meeting also holds significance because of the political turmoil that Pakistan is currently facing with their opposition and the Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif party. They have been exchanging very sharp remarks on the issue of the latest attack on Imran Khan. We know that how the situation has been unfolding ever since then, because apparently a FIR was not filed. Then Imran Khan insisted the way he wanted the FIR to be filed and the investigation to proceed further, because he wanted certain names, including name of Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and his second big leader Rana Sallah Khan's name also to be included in that FIR. Now the government is claiming that since it happened in Pakistan's Punjab province, where PTI's own ruling is there, they are not provided with the forensic reports or the medical report of Imran Khan, so they are trying to make it a fishy affair. So with all this exchange of barbs, this latest meeting that is happening between U.S. Bajwa and President Alvi is certainly very important, and probably we'll be able to see the impact of it in the next few days.
All right, Abhishek, thank you so much for breaking down all of that happened in that very important discussion between the Pakistan president and the army chief. Let's now shift focus back home. This is to do with the state of Tamil Nadu, as Tamil Nadu becomes another one of those southern states to be in loggerheads with its governor. The ruling DMK and its allies have now written a memorandum to the president of the country, Draupadi Murmu. The memorandum expressed dissatisfaction over the governor's work. DMK government alleged that the governor is openly contradicting the government policies in public and unduly delaying assents to bills. The letter further added that this amounts to interference in administration of the state and also the transaction of business by the legislature. It also impedes and obstructs a democratically elected government from serving the people, which is ex facie unconstitutional. Now remember, the Tamil Nadu government and governor's feud is going on for the past 10 months. My colleague Sharon Elizabeth now joins us on the broadcast. Sharon, after Kerala, Tamil Nadu becomes a second state to have witnessed such a feud.
Well, that is right. And in fact, when we talk about South India, there are about 3 states, like you mentioned, Kerala, Tamil Nadu and Telangana, where the state governments are in loggerheads with the governor of the state. Now, Tamil Nadu, when we talk about Tamil Nadu, their issue started from last year itself. In April, we have seen how there were series of protests by the ruling dispensation against the governor for actually sending back the NEET bill. Now, this particular memorandum, it was only last week when CNN News 18 also broke that how the DMK has in fact written to the like-minded parties to in fact join in and support their memorandum demanding the removal of the governor of the state. Now, in this particular memorandum, they have in fact put out a series of reasons why he should be removed. They have in fact said that the MPs and the leaders of Tamil Nadu believe that the governor is in fact unbecoming of his own position and he should be removed under Article 156 of 1, and under the power of the president he should be removed because he is in fact making statements which are spreading communal hatred within the society. He has been making seditious statement is what this memorandum has been claiming. Apart from that, they also in fact put out a list 20 such bills which has in fact been delayed of the assent by the governor. They have been saying that there is a delay by the governor in giving a green signal to these bills. Now, these bills include some of the very important bills. This one includes the NEET bill as well. Apart from that, one of the bill also includes the confer to the state government to in fact make appointments of the vice chancellors, because right now these appointments are made by the governor and the state government believes that there is in fact biasness. So similar kind of episodes are being seen in Kerala as well, in Telangana as well, and now in Tamil Nadu. And this memorandum has in fact been submitted at Rashtrapati Bhavan. We have to see will there be in fact a response by the President of India on this.
All right, Sharon, thank you so much. Let me take this across to my colleague Purnima as well. Purnima, almost 20 bills pending before the government, the DMK government calling him a threat to peace. And that memorandum really is seeking support of other political parties also. What others have joined in so far?
Well, one of the first leaders in the party to support the DMK's memorandum was the Congress. In fact, senior leader P. Chidambaram was one of them who openly tweeted that he and his party will wholeheartedly support the memorandum that the DMK had introduced. And all the other allies of the DMK also are on board. It's only
We had to interrupt Purnima there as there are protests that are happening in the state of Karnataka. Remember, these are BJP members. They are protesting in Karnataka over Satish Jarkioli's statement. Remember, Congress leader Satish Jarkioli had made a controversial statement against the word Hindu, calling it to be of Persian origin and the fact that it also has a very dirty meaning. These statements were something that the Congress party had ended up distancing itself from. However, BJP is not letting go of the matter. You can see BJP workers and also few leaders who are there on the streets protesting against the statements that had been made by Satish Jarkioli. Satish Jarkioli was speaking at a public event where he was talking about Hindi imposition in Karnataka, taking on the government, the Bomai government in the state. However, he ended up making some very, very controversial statements claiming that Hindu cannot be called Indian as it has a Persian origin. Also went on to say that the word itself has a dirty meaning. And this is something that has actually stirred a honest nest, and because of which you can see these protests in the streets in Karnataka. We have seen how the Congress party has chosen to respond to this. We have also seen that the Congress party has distanced itself from the comments that have been made by Satish Jarkioli. However, Satish Jarkioli himself had ended up defending his statement, going on further to claim that if you look at various articles on the internet, whether it is Wikipedia, whether it is WhatsApp, you would find significance to what I'm suggesting. Let me take this across to my colleague Harish, who's now joining us on the broadcast. Harish, which part of Karnataka are these protests being reported out of, and are there senior leaders also of the BJP who are part of it?
Well, so far it's largely the local leaders of the BJP who are part of it. One protest happening currently at Maurya Circle in Bengaluru by the state unit, and you have various leaders taking part in it. And the BJP wants to ensure that the Congress is cornered on this issue. We've already seen senior leaders, including the Chief Minister, coming out and saying that the Congress should ensure that he is taken out from his post or Jarkioli resigns and apologizes. He says if that's not done, then it's a message being sent across from the Congress party that There's a tacit support for the comments made by Satish Jarkiholy, and they do not really care about the sentiments of a majority of the people in this country. That's the line that the BJP has taken since yesterday. The Congress trying very hard to ensure that Satish Jarkiholy backtracks and apologizes. That hasn't happened. He's in fact challenging people to prove him wrong, and the BJP mounts the attack and ensures that at all district level there's some sort of narrative built around this, and that the BJP could encash on.
Absolutely. And Harish, we were tracking this story since yesterday. The fact that Satish Jarkiholy can go ahead and, criticize what he chooses to call Hindi imposition in the state of Karnataka. However, to make a controversial statement to that regard, calling Hindu a Persian word and then claiming that it had as a dirty meaning and then going on to justify also, that really will not augur well for the Congress. And like you rightly mentioned, BJP is not ready to let it go, and hence these protests, even after a day has elapsed, they still continue in the state.
Absolutely. The Congress making it very clear that they're unhappy about it. In fact, D.K. Shivakumar not mincing any words, saying even if Mr. Jarkiholy wants to call this his personal opinion, he's made it in a public space, and he's someone who holds a party position as a working president, and it's not acceptable at all. If he has such opinions, and if it's his personal opinion, it should be expressed in a personal space. He should say it at his house and not out in the public. And he's already made it clear that the Congress party doesn't subscribe to these views. But you have Jarkiholy coming out and saying, well, all these Hindu groups and the BJP should be thankful for me that, in fact, I pointed out that these are the kind of mentions made in some of these books. Instead, they are attacking me. And he says, I challenge anyone to prove me wrong. Continuing to hold his stance, the Congress finding it extremely difficult to ensure this issue dies down. The BJP ensuring that it continues and finds some sort of a resonance with their vote bank. So clearly, after a good 2 months of the Congress mounting an attack on the BJP on several issues, whether it's the PCM campaign or the 40% commission sarkar or the pothole roads in Bengaluru, the BJP is sensing the opportunity here to ensure that it hits back to Congress and the earlier narrative of the Congress can be diluted.
Absolutely. Harish, thank you so much. Let me take this across to Mr. Shankara Guha of the Congress Party, who's now joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Guha, the Congress has had a very good run when it comes to the Bharat Jodo Yatra in the state of Karnataka that it has just left from. It clearly did not need a controversy as massive as this. Mr. Jarkiholy could have rephrased